Hello and welcome to the Nature of Invisible Things, the podcast. I'm your host, Erin Kelly, and I'm so glad you're here. This is season 2, episode 15. And today, friend, I've got such a wonderful episode for you on invoking the magic and mysticism of the heart. And before I tell you all about that, you may notice that we're on video now, which is something new that has been in the works for some time. And I am excited to bring to you this new format. So if you happen to be listening on Spotify or Apple or any of your other favorite platforms, you can check out the link in the show notes and pop over to a brand spanking new YouTube channel where you can find this and hopefully many more exciting episodes to come. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Erin. As I mentioned, I'm an astrologer and esoteric strategist with a feral heart. And I love using astrology, ritual, and casual ceremony to help people build new beliefs, create space to thrive, and experience more satisfaction in their lives. You can find out more about me at slowmagic.com or at the Nature of Invisible Things on Substack. And all the links, as always, for your convenience are in the show notes. Okay, so excited to share this joyful and uplifting conversation with my friend Leah with you today. Together, we explore the significance of the heart in traditional Chinese medicine and its connection to summer, and discussing its role as a ruler, which you might be familiar with for the concept of rulership from astrology, as well as the heart's relationship to emotions and other organs within the body. We examine the heart's role in communication and perception, and we include its scientifically researched electromagnetic energy and its connection to astrology and cultural perspectives plus emotions. So join us for this episode as we invoke heart magic and explore how it can assist us in times of societal change. So you may remember Leah from season 1, but let me reintroduce Leah to you. Leah Lubin is an acupuncture physician, energy healer, and soul guide based in Tampa, Florida. She is passionate about helping others connect with their inner children and move through life with greater ease, joy, and clarity. While imbuing protection, Leah energizes self compassion, curiosity, and self trust, allowing her patients and clients to experience wholeness, to feel the deep well of peace, safety, and love within their own being. And along her own sacred journey, Leah has learned the profound healing that can come from the pure and sometimes uncomfortable surrender to grace, allowing her heart and soul to be nurtured. Leah also loves being a bridge between Western minds and Eastern energy concepts, teaching the multidimensional nature of energy medicine in the human body. She's an artist, auntie, cat mom, magic maker, and booty shaker. And as always, a Venusian at heart, she stops to smell the flowers. Welcome back, Leah. Enjoy. Welcome back, Leah, to the Nature of Invisible Things podcast. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you, Erin. I'm so excited to be here again.
I am excited for this too. Today, listeners, we have a fun episode. We've had so much fun preparing for this episode, and it's on the heart and more of an expanded view of the heart, though, from many different directions. We're going to talk about it a little bit in terms of seasonality, in terms of maybe a little astrology, a little Chinese medicine perspective thrown in there as well. And excited to kind of see where it goes. And I just am so excited. Leah brought this topic to me, and I just jumped at the chance, one, to have you back and share your beautiful presence with all of us again. And two, I just love the heart. I think it's so amazing.
It is so amazing and it is expansive and it's infinite. And so are all the ways we can know it and talk about it. And so thank you.
You're so welcome. I love, and I didn't actually know, other than the maybe loose correspondence, that, the heart, when we think of like the heart in astrology, the first thing that kind of comes to my mind is the sign of Leo and like courage and like the courageous heart and then like the strength card and the tarot. That's kind of where I went. But then you had mentioned like seasonally, like this is, I believe, like the season of the heart too. And I was wondering if you would share a little bit about that.
Yes. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the heart is associated with the summer. And just to give a little bit of background on traditional Chinese medicine, um, Taoist and Taoism, really, it springs from Taoism, is that our life is made up of mirrors, as above, so below. And Taoists gained their wisdom and I guess I can use the word faith in the natural world with direct experience. And that doesn't mean that, they had to see it to believe it, because they had, we all have direct experiences that are quote unquote spiritual or emotional. And the natural world reflects this. So in Chinese medicine, we have the five elements. And one of the elements is the fire element, and that is related to the heart and related to summer. And so I would say that the heart is born from the summer. The summer is born from fire, because summer was here long before hearts were, right? I would imagine. And so, yeah, the heart is associated with warmth, right? And the joy of summer. Think about summertime, it's filled with warmth, joy, light. The sun is in the sky for longer periods. We're enjoying the abundance of nature. We have maybe more energy. I mean, springtime has a certain type of energy that's very like pushing out and expansive and growth, but summer is more of that emotion, or that time where we are basking in the abundance of what is. It's already expanded. It's not expanding, it's expanded. There's
Mm.
infinite possibilities. And the heart truly is that infinite being. It crosses timelines, it crosses space. It's just so, so vast. And it's that kinetic energy of summer, right? And the
Hmm.
heart is always beating. So, and then the heart also is sensitive to heat, which is the sensation of summer is that heat. It's pure yang. It's a fullness, energy that sustains. So that's just some of the ways
Hmm.
that it's so reflective of the summertime.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, we're talking about it from the perspective of the northern hemisphere as well. Like a lot of astrology, Western astrology, Hellenistic astrology is like from the point of view of the northern hemisphere, and it sounds like Chinese medicine is similar in that way.
Yes, China is above the equator. So, I mean, but we all have summertime, even though it might not
Totally.
be summer now in the southern hemisphere. There's still a summertime, and that has those same sensations. Now, maybe if you're on the equator, which I'm actually pretty close to the equator,
Hmm.
we don't have in Florida, in Central Florida, we don't have the same seasons. Like winter is not that scary.
Mm.
For us here, things are always growing. In fact, I consider August sort of like winter because I don't want to leave my house. I like to stay inside. So yeah, it definitely varies according to the time of year for everybody.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting though to think about like these systems, astrology, one of them, Taoist medicine, Chinese medicine, these ancient technologies were started so long ago before we had really the knowledge of the globe, of the earth, of the way it
Mhm,
is. And
mhm.
kind of like when it's pretty cloudy here in the Pacific Northwest a lot of times. And I sometimes I have to hold on to the fact that the sun is out there. I just can't see it. And so it's nice sometimes when we're in the cold of winter to know that it is summer somewhere else.
That's so true, right?
Yeah.
Right. And that's that eternal summer. I think that there's a quote, that and that's another thing too, is like the word hardy is summertime, right? When something's hardy, it's robust. If something can survive the winter,
Mhm.
we consider that robust and hardy, and we want these hearty meals in the winter. We want to balance that, with the heat of like summertime feels in the winter to nourish us.
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, it's got me thinking we've had really warm weather here in the Pacific Northwest recently, and my appetite totally changes. Like I don't need as much I'm not craving like the heavier, heartier meals, maybe because I am hardy, just
Yeah.
like my constitution, like I'm more vibrant and alive and I'm craving more actually a little bit of cooling if I'm being completely
Mm,
honest.
so true. And that leads to the next thing is one of the other things is the flavor of summer is of the heart is bitter. And the bitter flavor is cooling. It drains that heat. And
Mm.
it's interesting because it might directly, but it also indirectly aids the heart. Well, in Chinese medicine, we say it can drain heart fire. So it's pretty direct there. But if you look at the Western, the anatomy and physiology of it, um, bitter herbs help the liver, help us produce
Mhm.
bile, which gets the cholesterol. It breaks down the fats and cholesterol, which go in our blood vessels, which creates heart disease.
Mm.
So indirectly, um, physiologically, it does help the heart. Um, And especially if you tend to be a warmer person, the summer can be vexing to the heart. And the heat flushes up, right? It rises. The heat rises because it's not anchored. And so we like these cooling herbs. The bitter herbs drain. And then, of course, we love the berries that are in
Oh,
season, the sweet,
so much.
sweet berries and nourishing sweetness of the heart and the juiciness, the water inside those fruits really nourish us.
Hmm. Yeah, I was just looking at my blueberry bushes this week because it's going to be a great crop this year. And then the
Yay.
raspberries are starting to come in as well. So I am really excited to. Berries are my favorite. Berries and stone fruits, those are my favorite fruits. And
Hmm.
the only time of year they're really in season for me is in the summertime.
Yeah, I love cherries. I live in a condo, and we used to have wild bushes along the walk, and I would stop and pick, and people looked at me like I had three heads. And one woman even was like, "Be careful." I'm like, "I know this is a blackberry. Like I know this is a blackberry." Okay. Thank you for your concern, but
I'm
anyway, but I
good.
think they cut them all back because people, would eat them and they're a little prickly, but
Yeah. Oh my
anyway.
gosh. Yeah, I really get into summer fruits. The only one that I'm not like super crazy about is peaches, and it's not because I don't like peaches. It's the fuzzy texture of the skin
Mm.
is a little yeah, it's like that microfiber texture on your tongue.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it can be. It like dries it out. I know what you're saying. Well,
Yeah.
it creates this like dry sensation. Yeah, well, that's what nectarines are for.
I know. It's the perfect fruit. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, that's so fascinating just to think about the what is the word I'm looking for? The distribution or the recipe of the elements just in our
Hmm.
day-to-day life and seasonally how they change, how we change, and um, you know, even maybe bringing so much as our awareness to how we're feeling, which is, I think, a very, very heart thing as well. Like what we're
Hmm.
experiencing in the moment, like how we might be able to like shift shift what we're experiencing, by tuning into it.
Mm-hmm. And that presence, a
Hmm.
presence and the appreciation too. It's like, okay, I'm in this season right now, and let me cherish what's available and notice what's going on in my own body during this time, and um, yeah, just nurture what needs to be nurtured and honor what needs to be honored because it doesn't last. Just like the
Hmm.
summers of our life.
Yeah, it'll be winter again before we know it.
Yeah. So I'd like to share some more stuff about the
Oh
heart.
yeah, I would love
And
that.
so so there's emotions associated with each of the five main organs, our vital organs, and then six, the pericardium, the heart protector, which falls in the category of the summer and fire as well. They each have their own emotion. They each have their own, they actually, so in Chinese medicine, I love this analogy. It's likened to the imperial court. So
Oh.
the heart is the emperor. The heart is um, the queen, the king, the ruler. And I love this metaphor because it makes each of these organs beings.
Hmm.
And it makes them so we can understand, and this is such a, the Taoist way of understanding things, to work together as a team. And you
Yeah.
can see how when one is weak, deficient, the other ones might have to pick up the pace in another area, or it just doesn't work as well, right? Things start to fall apart. And so I'll get back to that, but the we can imagine the emotion associated with the heart is joy. It's joy. And um and then on the flip side of that would be overexcitement.
Mm.
Overexcitement. And it's also like people that are considered heart people or that have an imbalance, they might laugh at like really inappropriate times. Or or
Yes,
like, like when they're uncomfortable. Or,
right.
you know, it's just, and it's obviously they're not laughing to be cruel. Honestly, those are the people that probably have the biggest hearts that are, just don't know how to deal with the situation, or that's how they, that's what they do. So there's that joy and overjoy, and um it can stir the heart, and it can just use up a lot of energy. And so if it's not balanced, and we can get in also anxiety when the heart isn't balanced, right?
Hmm.
That also has to do with connecting to the kidneys, to our essence, because they're all connected. So
Right.
when I'm talking about the heart here, and maybe symptoms, just know that it's all tied into other organs, just like the imperial court.
Mm.
Like the lungs are considered the prime minister. So the heart makes the vibe, right? The heart is
Right.
like, I'm ruling, I create the vibe, I create the energy, I'm directing things, and then the lungs take that chi, that vital life force from the blood, and it disperses it. So the prime minister is actually what acts things out, right? And that's in
Mm.
Chinese medicine. The lungs actually is what disperses chi through the body to be used. The liver does too. It's complicated.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
I love that. I didn't actually know that about Chinese medicine. I knew like I've heard like the spirit of the heart or, like organs having an essence or a spirit. I think that is some idea, whether I've made that up in my mind or I picked it up, that I've had that. And it's interesting because when I think of like astrology, I think of it in a very Taoist way, which is what I'm understanding is I feel like the planetary spirits or energies all work together. They work with us. Like it's where
Mhm.
we don't operate in a singular vacuum with one of them. When in our charts, which is a whole microcosm of who we are as a celestial being, it's
Right.
like we have stronger placements, and then we have planets that are not quite as strong, and so they have to work, but we can get them to work together. And yeah, so it's amazing. And again, as above, so below, everything's a mirror. It makes
Exactly.
sense that the cosmos, kind of the organization, or the way I think about that, is also somewhat reflected in the human body.
Yes, I love that. And I love that term, the organization of it, right? Because it
Hmm.
is all these certain essences that have organized themselves around each other to work in harmony.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
beautiful.
Like thinking about the malefics in particular, Mars and Saturn, we need them. We need
Hmm.
them in our lives for varying degrees and varying reasons. Too much expansion. So thinking about like Jupiter, too much expansion, unfettered expansion is not a good thing either. Like we have to have those periods of constriction, like summer and winter,
Right,
inhale and exhale,
right. We
sunrise,
need those.
sunset.
Yeah. I think Saturn, I mean, maybe it hasn't smacked me yet, but I think Saturn gets a bad rap.
Oh,
And so does
totally.
Mars. I mean, obviously out of, just like the heart, if it's out of balance, it's not going to have a good time. It's the other, to quote South Park. And it's not, the system isn't going to work. Like you said, if we don't have that structure of Saturn and that discipline, what are we doing? How
Hmm.
are we serving? What are we creating? I mean, I'm sure in some instances that works, but in general arc of the life, it's part of who we are.
Hmm.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, we have
We need it.
limits.
Hmm.
And I love this idea of the heart setting the vibe or
Hmm.
setting the tone, because have you seen the torus shape of
Mm.
the energy? I don't know. I guess it's a frequency, but
Hmm.
it looks like an apple kind of with a
Yes.
human in the middle, or the
Yes.
heart, the center of the
Hmm.
chest kind of in the middle, and this like field that the heart
Hmm.
creates. And I find that fascinating.
It's so fascinating. And that mirrors the apple in your, metaphor around the earth because it's
Mm,
the bioelectromagnetic field. And our heart actually, and I know you know this, creates the strongest field
mm,
out of all of the organs. And that's why it's the ruler. It makes sense. It just does rule. It's not like it got appointed that way. Like it is the ruler because its energy, it affects everything.
yeah.
Its energy affects everything. When it's coherent, and then they found this in the Heart Math Institute has a lot of information on this. And they found that when the heart rhythm is is rhythmic and
Hmm.
fluid and flowing, we're in a calm state. We can actually produce that by feeling gratitude in our hearts. And
Mm,
and of course, because it's the largest field, the strongest field, that's going to affect every cell in our body, even our
yeah.
brain, you know. Um, and when it's dissonant and it's distorted and not rhythmic is when we're in stress and we're not in the flow.
Hmm.
We're just not in the flow. And then our body also feels that. It's not that it necessarily shrinks or expands. It's still strong. It's just what are you putting out, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and that's going to affect our health. So we want the ruler to be in the rhythm, in the flow, in the Tao. The Tao means the way,
Hmm.
in the way, in harmony. Um, and one thing that one of my mentors, Sarah Thomas, said, she studied, she's a stone medicine acupuncturist. She studied with 88th generation Taoist priest Jeffrey Yuan. And she says that the heart never lets any of the organs feel an emotion by themselves. It's a compassionate ruler.
Mm.
So every organ that houses a different emotion, the heart is always affected by every emotion. And that is the sign of a good leader because you want your leaders to be compassionate and, you know, seeing what everybody needs, right?
Totally. That makes me really excited for Jupiter in Cancer. So we
Mhm.
are recording this on Tuesday, June 10th. Jupiter just moved into Cancer yesterday. Jupiter is one of the benefics along with Venus, and so they generally help us feel inspired to move towards something,
Mm.
and they bring us opportunities versus challenges or problems to solve, like Mars and Saturn typically do, which we also need for growth. Um, but this idea of Jupiter has associations with royalty. So when we think about like the ruler or the regent or the sovereign, thinking about it in the sign of the mother, in the
Mm.
sign of nurturance, in the sign of intimacy and care. Like the moon in astrology is not just our emotions, but it's how we give care and like to receive care.
Mhm.
It also represents our material needs. And so if we think about like the people or the body being tended to and the ruler in tune with the emotions and needs of the people,
Mm.
I think of that feels very like Jupiter and Cancer. I'm sure there's other combinations that all works out too, right? It's not
Mhm.
a one and done recipe, but I think about like the energy of that like divine mother. And I use the word mother not as in we have to have given birth to be a mother, but the
Mhm.
really the mother inside us all, the part of us that takes care
Right,
inside
nurtures and
all of us. Yeah. And so I love that for this time of year. And so what you were just saying about the emotional intelligence, I was just reminded about how culturally like we look at emotions as a negative thing, especially like in leadership. And that's always been one of
mm.
the reasons why women in particular are too hysterical and too emotional to like lead the people,
Right, right, keep
which
them
is just
down. Yep.
ridiculous.
Right. Like,
Have you
God
seen
forbid we
what's
get
happening
angry.
on national news recently? The
Oh,
girls are fighting.
talk about yeah, yeah. And then even besides their little whatever is going on, it's hard. I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's just every day something else. It's heart-wrenching and
Hmm.
how do we tend to that? How do we
Yeah.
keep our hearts open and tend and make space for that,
So
And
I think this energy, like thinking of Jupiter in Cancer as a electromagnetic frequency that we can like tap into
Mhm.
or co-regulate with in a way.
Mm,
Like when you
yeah,
mentioned earlier about the contemplation of gratitude and how that helps us bring our heart into a rhythmic balance, um, really appealed to me when you shared that.
yeah. And I can feel how Jupiter would, if we can expand that gratitude, it's so expansive, right? And like appreciating our emotions while it's in Cancer, right? And honoring and letting them even expand and then nurture them,
Mm,
Yeah, we're gonna cry. I know a lot of women that, or, patients that come in and even friends, like they don't want to cry because they don't think they'll stop, or I'm
hmm.
tired of crying every day. Well, you might have to cry every day. I mean, yeah, there's a time when you know your limits and you know when you might need,
Hmm.
support, obviously. Um, but don't be afraid to get angry about what's going on or
Right.
feel sadness. It's just we have to balance that with joy,
Hmm.
you know. in that expanded view.
And to what you just shared, also, just to echo that, the heart never lets any organ experience an emotion alone. To me, that just demonstrates the wisdom of being able to share our feelings with each other,
Hmm.
to witness.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we have to rush in to fix it, or that we have to like permanently set our dial to feeling this one emotion all the time, but just being willing to receive what another human
Hmm.
is sharing with you in that moment. I think that's really beautiful
So beautiful.
because we're
Yeah.
all like, more than not, more likely than not, we've all experienced so many similar things, right?
Hmm.
The universal is personal to some degree, and the personal is universal.
Right. And when we connect in that way, we don't feel alone. And I think, as someone who I've struggled with depression, that's definitely one of the thought feelings that comes in is like feeling alone,
Hmm.
and we're never alone, never alone. And we literally are connected to everything. And even, I mean, yes, having warm bodies to talk to and laugh with is indispensable. But truly, we're never alone because we are all connected in this field and we are connected to the heart. That's how we access this quantum field of
Hmm.
of everything, of past, of the future. It's the divine lives in our heart, and the divine is everything, I feel.
Yeah, I've often heard, and I'm forgetting where I heard this. It's an energetic practice, but like there is like a doorway. I mean, and I've heard it like in Gnostic Christianity around like this the spirit, like God dwells within,
Hmm.
which makes sense. Makes sense that it's in the heart. It makes
Hmm.
sense that I've also heard about like a doorway to spirit or to consciousness being in the heart as well.
Yes, and that brings me to thank you, Erin, for your beautiful segues.
I don't even know where we're going, so this is great.
Your heart knows.
My heart knows.
As that, so the spirit that resides in the heart is the Shen. Okay, and the Shen means spirit. Shen means spirit. And in the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's Classic, which is a text that's over 2,000 years old, it says, the heart is the root of life and the origin of mental life. So this is where our mental faculties come on board. Which to me makes sense because as you're working up through the chakras from the root up, like we go through our power center, ego, and like that's where we're stuck. I feel a lot of us are
Hmm.
stuck, which is a whole nother conversation. But we come up through the heart in order to draw down the wisdom of like the higher planes. And I mean, I use the word higher like
Yeah.
other dimensions or the eagle eye, like literally like if you're going to be have an eagle eye and we draw it down into the heart. And so that Shen, which can be seen in the eyes, is our spirit. And it's very similar to the noose.
Hmm.
So and I see you agreeing with that. And it's that, I don't know, should we go there?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go
Let's
there.
go there. So, Megan Watterson, the
Hmm.
author of Mary Magdalene Revealed, she was on a podcast, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the podcast, but she was talking about Mary Magdalene's Gospels. And Mary asks Jesus after he is, risen or in spirit, and she says, "How can I see you right now? Like, how am I communicating with you? Is it through the soul, the spirit?" And you know, who knows what those words meant in those times, right? And he says to her, it's through the noose,
Mhm.
which is when you translate it, it's heart. It's the heart mind. It's the mind. When I first heard that, I thought, oh, of course it's the mind, because how do we know anything? How do we have awareness of anything, no matter what dimension it's in? It's through the mind. But it's not just the mind, because the brain in Chinese medicine is not even a major organ. It's a curious organ. And
Mm.
there's no spirit that resides in the brain.
Yeah.
It's just like a train station. It puts things together. But the spirits and the so even then they knew the mind resided in the heart. And of course, after that, all those pages were ripped out. So we don't know, he might have gone on to say how we do that or gone into more explanation of what that meant. Unfortunately, those pages got ripped, but so grateful that some radical monks buried these texts instead of burning them
Hmm.
way back when, right? Can you imagine those times? Like, wow. Anyway, so that it's that mind spirit. It's like it's the connection to everything. It's how we know things interdimensionally. It's how we speak to our guides through the heart, through the heart.
Yeah. I love
And
that. Um,
yeah. And then when Shen, and so the heart is also in charge of the five senses.
mm,
And so when we sense something, the heart is what determines, and the Shen determines, like, can we perceive this clearly? Are we perceiving this clearly? Is the heart clear? If the heart is clear and balanced, then the Shen sparkles, it shines, the light can come in. When it's not, our senses are dulled, perceptions are off and distorted. The Shen is cloudy. Shen is cloudy, and we're not able to discern, make decisions based on like a clarity,
hmm.
which I find
Yeah,
fascinating.
I do too, especially like thinking about Neptune. Neptune is an outer planet that often has themes of compassion and I would put transcendence in there as well. It is the furthest, I guess, planet.
Don't be hating on Pluto.
I'm not hating on Pluto.
Just
I'm just
kidding.
trying to say you totally went there. I could feel it. I was like, oh, how do I explain this? So I don't, no, I totally see Pluto from an astrological perspective, but Pluto's
I
orbit
know.
doesn't, it's not the same as the other planets that
Hmm.
orbit around the sun. So that's why it has an elliptical orbit and it's not normal, which is fine. That's why we love Pluto. No hate
Right.
to Pluto. We love Pluto here. But the Neptune is like between us and like everything else and the rest of the cosmos. It's the
Mm,
furthest out. And so thinking about one of the things that can happen with Neptune is it can be very cloudy. It can
mm,
cause lots of things I think astrologically could be considered distortions, right? Even belief, concretized belief,
yes.
unconscious belief could all
Yes.
be distortions that impact us. But yet, Neptune, when you were talking about that just now, that made me think of like the Neptune experience and how that sensitivity creates, we might be more sensitive to the distortion in addition to like what's actually happening because of Neptune. It can make us very sensitive
Hmm.
and yet also anesthetize us to the truth and undulate between the two.
Right, because it's so sensitive.
Hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
I love that.
fascinating. And what was also, I was reminded of going back to that Heart Math Institute, one of the things that they were studying was that the heart actually has more electromagnetic energy, like it's been studied. Like, so we're talking about this, and yes, Chinese medicine is a real thing, and
Hmm.
but we also we're talking about other dimensions and
Right.
the fact that we're divine beings in a physical form or a part of a divine being manifested in physical form. And so to be thinking about like just in ways that in our material world we can actually see some of these things reflected in
Hmm.
how we understand our physical reality. Um, but yeah, that the heart is actually 5,000 times greater in terms of its electromagnetic field than the brain.
Hmm. Right.
And
Because
so I
it's
think
the
it
ruler.
it
Yeah.
well, and also what you were saying about like the brain is a curious organ
Hmm.
versus an organ that has a spirit.
Hmm.
And that's pretty amazing. And that the heart, the other thing that the heart math said that I think correlates with what you're sharing from a Taoist perspective that they knew 2000 and probably even more years ago is that the heart sends more communication to the brain than the other way around.
Mm. Hmm.
Which to me is just wild because you think we hear so much in about in our culture about mindset, and
Hmm.
mindset is important for sure. But if we start with like the thinking mind when really maybe the key is what we're feeling.
Heart mind, 100%.
Mhm.
Because you can say an affirmation all day. If you don't believe it, it might actually harm you because you're like, this isn't me, this isn't me. There's a quote um, by Ellie Roselle that I love. A belief is not an idea held by the mind. It's an idea that holds the mind.
Mm, wow. Can you
Yeah.
say that one more time?
A belief is not an idea held by the mind. It's an idea that holds the mind.
Mm,
So that speaks to what you're saying of the beliefs lie in our heart, and because the heart knows what's going on in the rest of the body. If you have a trauma that you stuff down into your hips, because and there's a charge there still, like a literal charge, we talk about emotions having charge. They actually have a physical charge, right? It's stuck somewhere. The heart knows that. The heart knows everything.
mm,
So that belief then gets stuck in the heart, and then that like we were saying, it clouds the perception. So yeah, and I wanted thank you for saying this again because I also wanted to share. um so for those, I'm going to share the character of the heart in a couple different organs. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, then you can just look this up, but I'm going to share. I drew these. So the heart character.
you drew, hold on. You drew something for us?
I did.
Okay. All right, I'll add something later, but keep going. Okay.
Okay.
I don't want to derail, but part of
Well,
me
I'm holding
wants
this,
to.
so I won't forget if you
Yes.
do derail.
Okay.
It's okay.
No, but I love
Um,
it.
so this is the character for the heart. Look at it. Look
Oh
at
my
beautiful.
gosh.
They knew. I mean, they might have taken a heart out of a body to know, but look at the electricity. So the heart is the only organ, the only flesh that doesn't have a flesh character. So here's a lung and liver. And you see
Hmm.
this character right here?
Yes.
This means flesh. It also means moon, which could be related to flesh in some way. Can contemplate that, but it also means flesh. So the heart is the only organ or body part that doesn't have that flesh character in it. So they understood that the heart is spirit. The heart
Wow.
is spirit. And you can even see even, I mean, it looks a little bit like a smiley face. It might have been just the way I drew it too, but you can see the emanations coming
Hmm.
off of it, right? So I just find that just mind blowing and just so rich and special, and like go humans, like go ancient humans, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, so fascinating.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I love how you are such an artist. I just want to love on Leah for just a second here because I mean, life is art. We can look at it from an expanded view, but like you bring in so much creativity to like everything you do. I just love that about you.
Thank
Can I tell
you.
them about, well, so
Yes.
Leah is a participant in devotional astrology and tarot, which is just so much fun. Or
So much fun. It's
I'm
so
having such
amazing.
a good time, and I think other people are too.
And
But
you're teaching us so much, Erin. Thank you.
you're so welcome. It's my absolute joy and pleasure. But one of the things that I love in this, and again, feels very heart generative as well, is that folks find different ways. We're really in this, we're learning so much. One of the things that we're learning is the experience of devotion and different ways that we show devotion and different ways that we think about devotion and experience it and feel it and all these things. We're just happen to do it through the language of astrology and tarot. And one of the things that Leah has done, which I think is so amazing, is finding this devotional practice of remaking some of the cards like from the tarot with your own flair, with your own spin, some even in a self-portrait type of way. And it's just when I see them, it just fills me with joy. It's like the joy gets transferred, the creativity or the experience that you create and like put into what you're doing. And then when I view it, it's like it transfers to me or I
Oh,
get to experience it too. And I think that's because I'm experiencing it through, it's like I'm experiencing your heart, like through my heart.
mm,
And
I
it's
love
so
that.
incredible. And I have to say, like, I may, in the classroom, I get so excited when I like open the classroom and then there's another piece of art that you've shared with us related to what we're studying that week.
Thank you.
And
It's
it
fun.
really, I can't tell folks how much it gives me life. It's life giving,
Well, I am so freaking glad.
you
That is
know.
amazing and that is inspiring. Oh my gosh.
And I just love it because like you doing that, like this is one of the ways, like devotion, which I think is another heart really activity. It's a way to
Totally.
be in relation and to be in gratitude. Like you found your own way into it. Like it doesn't have to look a certain way. It's something that's meaningful to you,
Right.
connects to your joy. Um,
Yes, thank
yeah.
you. And it was such a surprise. You know, it really was. And it's funny because I had pulled, I have a full moon group that we meet most full moons, we try to, and I pulled the Six of Cups, which is with the two children and the cups and the field and the flowers, not the field, but like the house in the
Hmm.
background. And very nostalgic, very related to childhood. And we talked about it in my group. And then, well, it's like three of us, but which is fine. And then I pulled it the next day, which is out of 78 cards. And it's interesting because it was within the next couple days that I drew first the Queen of Pentacles because I wanted her on my altar, but I didn't want to take her out of the deck. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just draw her. And drawing, especially drawing women, is something that I did so much as a kid. I love drawing women. I love drawing boobs. I love drawing their bodies. I mean,
Boobs are awesome.
yeah, they are. And I just, not that there's like really any boobs in any of my drawings and in my tarot drawings, but anyway, I, it's like I reclaimed this love of childhood and the joy of drawing and coloring women. And yeah, so it was just fascinating how that all transpired and I followed my joy because my Shen was clear, you know.
Hmm.
I know other times in my life I might have been like, oh, that'd be a good idea. And I think about it and wouldn't do it. And I'm so glad that I did. So encourage anyone to just do it. And
Yeah.
the fact that you have received them so lovingly and like excitedly, uh, it just makes me feel like it's definitely part of my soul's purpose
Hmm.
for sure, and
Yeah.
that's, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love what you're just saying about that. It's like you sharing that. It does, it hits on a level that gosh, it's so hard to explain. Because I think it is on that soul experience.
Mhm.
It's creating just for the sake of like creating and having this like experience of making this and this
Totally.
connection. And
Totally.
I'm always amazed at like how much color and detail that you can get into these images. And y'all, this is like a study. Like some of it is slightly hidden. Like you have to, it's just like any other tarot deck where you have to kind of look at it a few times to like take everything in. Like it is a work of art. I really feel that. So anyway, I didn't mean to take us on this whole digression, but I have wanted to share previously like how much joy it brings me. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think that that segues to just how that the heart is a receiver too. It's a giver and it's a receiver. And it is ineffable. It's indescribable. And it's just it reminds me of the Tao. Anything, what's the saying? Anything that can be named, the Tao is not the Tao. You can't, they understood that the oneness, the seed of truth is unknowable, but maybe we can feel it.
I love that. The seed of truth is maybe unknowable or is unknowable, but maybe we can feel it.
Yeah, like we can't explain it. We can't know it with the brain, but we can feel it. We can like sense it in some level because the heart spans space and time. We can access that to the heart and like these sharings of art,
Hmm.
right? Um, that's how we do it, sharing with
Hmm.
each other.
Yeah, it's joy multiplied,
Mhm.
you know? I think it's great. And I think too, the Heart Math Institute also, and I'll link the study in the show notes for anyone who wants to know everything that we're talking about, just so that you can read it for yourself. But the heart's energy is said to reach about 3 feet outside the physical body and can be detected in another person via echocardiogram.
Mhm.
And that just is like wild to me. I mean, we all know it. I mean,
Right,
those if you know, you know.
right,
If
right.
you know, you know. But like to see it again, I love when science
Hmm.
and what we know about spirit intersect or they kind of catch up to one another, which
Mm-hmm.
is one of the things I think I'm excited about Saturn and Neptune in Aries, because I think what we know and experience of our material reality is going to shift in a big way.
Yeah, I love that. And I love thinking of Neptune as Shen or having an aspect of Shen. Because I want to contemplate the heart in every planet.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah, it's funny you say that. Well, and I'm jumping in here just
yeah.
because when I was, as I do thinking about our conversation we were about to have, I'm like, okay, well, where is the heart in astrology? And there are planets that correspond to different parts of the body and whatnot, signs also. And so yes, Leo is the heart, but in terms of planet, I think it's in everything.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say the sun is the main
Mm,
thing, but the sun shines on all of them, right? The sun, like the heart takes the knowledge and the essence and the energy from each organ. So, and I don't know that there's a one-to-one,
Mm-hmm.
as we're saying.
Yeah.
Um, but the sun does shine and give life to, not that it's shining that bright on Neptune way out yonder. And there's no 3D life that we know of there. But so I would say the sun mainly, but I do feel like there is an aspect, just off the top of my head, I don't see it so much in Mercury, but Mercury is so, neutral that that's okay. But yeah, going back to the Shen in Neptune and what you just said about like our reality shifting, it's like, yeah, if we can really get clear on on like the truth of our reality and how our hearts, like when we can stay in our hearts and stay grateful. And this is not to dismiss the horrors of the world and the pain in each of our stories. But there is that essence in the heart where we can hold it all and we can see that our what we're tuned into really does affect our outer reality. And maybe that can change the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
it can at least change the space that we're taking up and who we interact with. And, and if
Yeah.
that's all we can do, like that's enough.
Yeah, I was thinking too, like even if it's just our perspective that
Mm,
shifts and
right.
therefore our experience of what's happening, maybe what's happening is still the same, but our context or our relationship to it has expanded in a way that has made room for all of it.
Yes.
Because I do think the repression, not seeing everything as part of the whole,
Mm,
when we other a part of ourselves or other another, like if we don't, like this whole idea about what's alien, especially in terms
mm,
of like our current political climate, like immigration and whatnot, it's like
mm,
to
yeah.
to other another
Mm,
and to you're othering part of yourself.
yeah.
And that's a really challenging concept for, I think, a lot of people in this, and especially when you look and you see the pain and you see everything that's happening, to be able to remain present with that and accept that that is happening. And that requires, I think, a level of presence that then engages the nurture that also cause us to take action and make a change of some sort. And
Yeah.
that's where I think people
Hmm.
shut down and shut
Right.
off.
100%. And yes, I was totally with you on that train.
Good.
And I think that we might, yes, that's that anger, that righteous anger. And I don't mean righteous in the sense of like self-aggrandizing or ego, like, but that righteous, like, this is not right.
Hmm.
Um, People shut down. We shut down because what can we do? We feel helpless to what's going on. But if it can help inspire us to just be kinder to the next person, or maybe, donate if we can, or donate our time somewhere to help what's in front of us, our community, it ripples out. It does make an effect, and it does give us some sense of peace. I believe, I mean, I think when it happens to me, and some sense of like rightness in the world.
Hmm.
And we just have to hold truth of it all, And we didn't, with the internet and us all being more connected, I mean, I feel like that is a sign of our evolution of like no understanding the quantum and being connected, but it's overwhelming. But thank
Hmm.
God we know. Like,
Yeah.
like it's hard to see it, but just think about stuff that was going on, in the 70s and 80s, and we didn't know what was going on. The same stuff was happening, maybe not in America, but it actually some of it was happening in America. So yeah, it's yeah,
Hmm.
like you said, the perspective is everything.
It is. It absolutely is. And, speaking of that, we're in this Jupiter and Cancer period, which generally, Jupiter, when it enters a sign or when it enters a place within our charts, Jupiter generally likes to fix or help what needs helping. And so I think that's why so many of us are excited that Jupiter's in Cancer.
Yeah.
However, July's astrology is a little rocky. We have some rocky signatures to kind of move through and get through some challenging aspects. We have another one of the outers changing signs as well in July. So I think when we think about, and that doesn't necessarily portend unfortunate events in any one of us personal lives, but more so just like on the world stage, what some of the things that we might see. We have some challenging aspects between Mars and Uranus, as well as Mars and Saturn coming up. And that plus the eclipses that continue on, and we enter that eclipse season again in September. And eclipses are just some of those challenges where we are more presented with those shadow aspects. So if we do think of, I love this idea. I was like, of course the heart is related to the sun because that's also Leo and that is it shines on everything. And so now I'm like, oh, and eclipses are where the shadow of the earth or the shadow of the moon from our vantage point eclipses the sun, or the earth goes between the sun and the moon, and we see the shadow, we see these things kind of change, and the light, maybe the Shen of
Mhm.
our galaxy is experienced in some sort of way, or our perception of it, we get to see a piece of it we hadn't seen before
Mhm.
that is there for acknowledgement and integration.
Yeah, I love that.
So I don't actually know where I was fully going. Oh, I was talking about the astrology. So, but this idea of like being present, with what is, I think is really where I was connecting into that we have these intense changes that are happening, and it is like the contraction and the expansion. It is the rhythm of our lives, these events, these things that are happening are what changes our trajectory. It's what changes our direction,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
looking at it rather than thinking about it not happening, but being present to like what
Mhm.
is, and then making change
Mhm.
as we're able, and also recognizing that it's a process. I think so many of us don't start because we look at it from the end point versus like the bridge, crossing a bridge from one point to the other. Like there's different
Mhm.
places along the bridge, and like just
Mhm.
calling out where you are on the bridge
Mhm.
can be so empowering
Totally. Yeah,
versus
and
like, yeah, not saying there's a bridge in the first place.
right, not saying there's a bridge or thinking like, oh, there's so many bridges to cross. I don't want to start the journey. And it's like, well, you never know. You might go over this first bridge and it might take you another direction.
Hmm.
So, being open to that trajectory.
Definitely, definitely. And so, yeah, eventually when Mars moves into Virgo and then to Libra, it's going to come into an opposition with Saturn. So Saturn and Mars, two of our favorite friends, you would think because they're both malefics, they get along, but they don't necessarily. Mars is hot and dry, and Saturn is cold and dry. So never the two shall mix. So we'll see. They're going to be kind of at a standoff a little bit later in the year. And then we do have some really nice moments though. So once and we have a Mercury retrograde thrown into the mix as well. And so eventually, after Mars moves into Libra and opposes Saturn and also Neptune, because those two are pretty close together in the sky, then like 2 days later, Mercury stations direct, and then Venus and Jupiter have a conjunction in Cancer
Mm.
at 14 degrees. And so we get this, like, we have this really challenging um, kind of like late June, early July into part of August. But then we have this really sweet moment. And so I'm sharing that because the word that's coming through for me is around the hope, around those of us that are available and present and are choosing to connect to the heart, are choosing to be connected to one another, to help one another, to create this emotional resilience,
Hmm.
just to remember that. And I do think once we move through the summer and kind of come into September that things are going to even out a little bit in terms of like the intensity,
Mm.
you know? And our hearts, I just think about the resilience of it and to coming back to like what we are grateful for
Yes.
because and I know that sounds kind of like it does sound trite, right? But if we really think about what it is calling us towards, it's
Hmm.
calling us towards presence to like what is
Hmm.
immediately in our vicinity, and we start there. We start
Exactly.
there.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and that gratitude, like we are so strong. We are so, so strong. And that strength doesn't come from our muscles and it, it does come from our adrenals to some degree, that will to carry out, but the heart is where our strength lies.
Hmm.
And when we can come into coherence, which is what gratitude is. I mean, if you want to talk about gratitude scientifically, if you want to get like, that about it, it's bringing the whole body back into coherence. It's also dropping out of the mind, right? And
Yeah.
we want an embodied practice. And I was a massage therapist for almost 20 years before I retired my license, and I did a lot of continuing education classes and went to them. And in every modality, one way or another, you start by finding gratitude, whether it's Reiki, that Reiki prayer just for today. If you don't know it, you can, because you don't have to be a Reiki practitioner to say it. I wake up in the morning and say it before I even open my eyes. I say it.
Hmm.
I mean, I am a Reiki practitioner, but you don't have to be. And it's all, in all the modalities I've studied, we always get in the right frame of heart mind. In Jinshin Jitsu, we learn to think of a memory that makes us happy, that brings us joy.
Hmm.
So there's different ways of getting there, but it brings the heart into coherence. And here's the thing about that. If we're coherent in the heart, that's when we can expand in possibility. And that's when our Shen is clear. So just in order to make clear-minded decisions, we want to be coherent. And the fastest way to that coherence, if you don't have a cat to pet, or and people pet their cats and be in a shitty mood too, whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Fredo finally gave up tearing my place apart, wanting to go outside.
Thank you,
He
Fredo.
finally, he's finally being quiet. But it's the fastest way to get there is with gratitude. Truly
Hmm.
feeling it. I mean, you can intellectualize gratitude, but to feel it, to drop down and feel it. And sometimes we have to get grounded first. We have to drop into our seat, drop into the earth before we can, drop into the heart. It's just however you can get there, because that's how you take action and find strength,
Hmm.
or we, I should say.
Yeah, I
It's not
love
always
this.
easy. It's not always easy. I'm not trying to, I know that.
No, not at all. But what I love about what you shared is it brings back the connectivity of it all. Because even if gratitude, us connecting and feeling our gratitude is not solving the world's problems, it's one of the first steps to readily being able to clarify our Shen, which then invites the next right step, invites the next
Exactly.
right action. It's like I think of it as building blocks,
Mm,
you know?
mhm.
And so and in that way, it's not trivial. It becomes part of a practice.
It
And
is.
some days we have to reach. We have
Hmm.
to reach far down,
Right.
deep.
It takes discipline sometimes. Yeah, we do
Hmm.
have to reach down deep, but it does get easier. And that doesn't mean that we are not going to fall off the rails 10 minutes later necessarily. But when we can practice it, and bring ourselves that state of heart mind, we, like you said, we can build something, we can cross the bridges that are need to be crossed with clarity, and our senses are clear.
Yeah.
We can really see the truth of things, and and that presence, that's, I mean, that's everything, right? With the presence and um being able to connect those two.
Well, Leah, it has been so wonderful to have you back and talk about the heart. If you could just remind folks where to find you online, should they want to give you a follow and stay in touch?
I am on Instagram at sacred path underscore wellness. That is my business. I'm an acupuncturist in real life and brick and mortar, but I also do distant healing and stone gritting and stuff like that, crystal healing. And then I'm also on Facebook. You can find me at Feel Better, Heal Better, old school. I don't do a whole lot on there, but that's where I am if you want to stay connected. And thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure and such a joy.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you for sharing your presence with us and your knowledge. And I definitely feel the connection between my organs in a way that's like, like I think my own personal worldview has expanded. So thank you for
That is
that.
amazing. I'm so glad. I love when people get in their bodies like that. And so, so good, so good.
Thank you, Leah. And that was my conversation with Leah. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Honestly, I cut out like 30 more minutes of conversation. So I think we'll have to have Leah back again. Let me know. Like, comment, share, subscribe, do all the things if you like this episode, and let me know what you would like to see next. So that was just amazing. And also, all of Leah's links are in the show notes. And so you can find a link to her Instagram and her Facebook. And so be good, be sure to give her a follow. And if you happen to be in the Tampa area and need some acupuncture, you can contact her as well. And so I am wishing you a beautiful summer. I have another episode that's in the can, almost ready to go. And then I'm excited to continue working on some more exciting projects. Keep saying the word exciting because it is. I've had actually a lot of things on the back burner. So, as always, sending you lots and lots of love from all the places in between. Until next time.